We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Waves channel. I'm Bradley Denniston. In this video today, I'm going to be taking all the analog style plugins we got with the Waves bundles. I'm going to be mixing a song with just those. So we don't get any of the fancy stuff. No AI stuff, no one-click stuff, no curves equator. All right, we're going to really be rocking with the old school stuff from Neve to SSL to the CLA stuff. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to teach you guys a bunch of stuff that I've learned over doing this for 2+ decades and using a lot of these analog pieces of gear. And my promise to you in this video is that you will learn something. No matter if you've been mixing for a year or you've been mixing for 15 years. So let's dive right in and let's get to work. All right, before we dive into the mix, let's take a listen to the song and I'll just play it up through the first chorus.
Yeah, we're onto something. Pick me up, baby, you just don't understand how you blow me away. When you walk by, all I stare, you light up the room, floating high, but you never waste a moment on my mind. We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
All right, so it's kind of an alt pop rock kind of vibe. It's called 15 Minutes to Midnight. And there are no plugins on here, just a couple things set up that I'm gonna explain as I go. And the L2 limiter, just catching overs on the master bus. So let's dive into the drums. That's usually where I like to start with a mix. I want to get the foundation sounding really solid, and then I'll pop on the bass, and then I'll do any rhythmic elements, like if there's rhythm guitars, anything that's going to be kind of part of the foundational elements of the track. And then I'll get the vocals in as soon as possible. So let's focus in on these drums. The first thing I want to do with the drums, before I do anything else, is I want to use this little cheat code that I learned from Jason Joshua, which is the 8 NLS buses on my drum mix bus. I already have this set up, so I don't waste time showing you guys me opening up NLS buses one at a time for 8 times, you know what I'm saying? Because that's, who wants to see that? It's like watching paint dry. So with the NLS bus thing and the approach here, I put all my drums to the mix bus, okay? It's a drum mix bus. And on that drum mix bus, I just alternate mic, spike, Nevo. And I don't typically turn any knobs on this. If you want a little bit of, a little bit more saturation or drive out of this, you could turn the drive up, right? On one of these or 2 of these. I don't touch them. I think it sounds amazing, and it just kind of gives this fullness to the drums, helps them stand to attention. Sounds great. So let's listen to what that does to the drums as we come into, let's say, like the chorus here. Just fattens them up, makes them real thick, harmonically rich, and I really love that. And the second thing you can do with the drums, I leave these little spaces open because sometimes you want to tame some EQ on there. So if I come in here, I want to use maybe like an SSL EQ, one of my favorite EQs for just cutting stuff. And also the filters on here are really great. So if I turn on the filter here, I could just sweep up to, let's say like 20, maybe 15, 20. And this way I can kind of clean up that low sub stuff. Because this is an alt rock track, we don't really need a whole lot of that. If I was mixing, let's say, a trap record or something really EDM heavy, I would always keep that 20 hertz. So I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to tame the low mids or the low frequencies here. And I'm just going to go to like somewhere around 50 or so and just kind of tuck this back a little bit just to calm it. If I want a little bit more spit out of the drums, I look around 3K to 6K, 3K to 7K, typically for my drums. So I'll go in here and I'll start at 6K. So let's just kind of pop up a little bit of 6K with a really broad Q, meaning our EQ is really wide here. And then I'm just going to boost this up quite a bit so you guys can hear it, and I'll A/B this SSL EQ. So as you can tell, it kind of just brings things a little bit tighter, but also we're getting a little bit more of the hi-hats and the top end of stuff. And I'm just going to leave that. I'm not going to touch much of this. There's nothing else that I feel like the drums really need to be treated. The only other thing I would want to do is take this drum mix bus into a drum master bus. To make modern records, you kind of have to do modern techniques. But here with the drum mix bus, I'm going to take it to bus 6, which is already set up with my drum master bus as well. And on the drum master, what I want to do is just hit this with some good compression. SSL compressor is going to be like the standard, and that is just like the G series console. So right here, how I set this up is I like it to be the slowest attack, which is still really fast, 30 milliseconds. And then I want to do a really fast release. Sometimes I'll slow down the release a little bit. For these drums, I think probably 0.1 to 0.3 is going to be really good, or even on the auto setting, it's really nice. Now, of course, with this updated SSL comp, we also have the sidechain filter, which is amazing for just letting this compressor only see things above a certain frequency. So this will allow the detector circuitry of the compressor to filter out like a high pass filter, so the low end doesn't get through to the compressor circuitry and start triggering the compressor, which gives us a cleaner compression. So what I'm going to do is kind of bring this up to like 150 or so, because I know the snare is kind of around that 100 to 150 area. It's like, poof, right? It's really, really fat. All right, so let's check this out. And I like the 4-to-1 because it's a little bit more of a softer knee. Now, do you hear what the sidechain filter is doing? Because that is an amazing feature of this updated SSL comp plugin. Really what it's doing is not triggering the because when that big low energy hits, it's a lot of voltage and it's choking down on the compressor, which makes it choke down on everything because this is not a multi-band compressor, right? This is a full-fledged compressor. We're compressing all the frequencies, no matter what. Even when we have the sidechain filter on, we're just allowing the compressor to see less of everything below 158. Gives those drums some really good smack. Obviously, we're getting some gain out of this, and louder does sound better. One thing you might want to do, though, is pay attention to what's hitting on the master bus. It's hitting negative 1.1, so if you do want to leave a little bit of headroom, you can leave the makeup gain back down. So let's take it back down, for example, and pay attention to what's going on the metering on the master bus here. All right, great. Now we have negative 3.2 dB to work with, which is, a lot of people would say, oh, that's not enough headroom. I think that's plenty, especially for a modern record. We want to hit into some stuff that's going to be aggressive. It's going to distort. That's what I want. I'm going for that. This is a rock record. You know what I mean? Like, okay, distortion, no. Yeah, yes, distortion. All right, so another thing I want to do with these drums, which I love doing, is I want to send the kick and the snare to a parallel compressor, which I already kind of have set up here on bus 8. And I'm just going to send this to bus 8 here. And with my parallel compression, I always send 100%. So just option click this. And the reason being is you want 100% of a copy of the kick and the snare to go to that bus that's a parallel. And then we're going to blend in the large fader into the mix, which is the return on that parallel. Okay, so let's go find that parallel. So the parallel here is the P comp, and I have an API 2500 ready to go on this because it's one of my favorites for parallel compression on drums. I won't get into all the technical details of that because, you know, I don't want to lose you guys. But if you guys are liking the video so far, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Very important, and I'll do more of these videos, hopefully for Waves, to teach you guys even more in-depth stuff. So I'm going to turn the analog off because the analog sometimes will add some noise that I don't really care for. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to go with a medium knee, not a hard knee. I like the medium personally for drums. Thrust on medium. If I go too loud on the thrust, it's going to let more low end through, and medium is just a nice balance, and then normal is going to be the least amount of low end coming through. And I like the new type. It's just a feed forward, and this is a feedback on the old, so it feeds back into the input circuitry, which gives you more distortion, more harmonics, right? Which can be really cool for a lot of stuff, but not for these drums. They're already pretty saturated. And then 6-to-1 ratio, my attack, I like to do like 1 or 3 here. I like to let the attack through. So if you go too fast, you're going to get this like because the attack is going to be so fast that it's going to be letting the drum attack initially and then grabbing it really quick. So you get this kind of like click. I don't want that. I want the punch. I want the You know, I want that to come through. Okay, and then the threshold, I'm gonna hit right around like -12 or so on this. I mean, that's bad as hell, right? Like, we got really punchy drums going now. The snare drum, I do feel like is a little too fat, so I'm going to use the SSL EQ, and I'm going to use just the filter on this because the filter is really good. And the way I set the filter on this is to filter up until I start losing the punch in the body of the snare and then backing off. So check it out. Right, and that just cleans things up, allows more low end to come through when I start adding the bass and other things that have bass in them. And I also want just a little bit more spit on the top of the snare. So again, I'm gonna go around the 3 to 6K area, and I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a boost. That's really nice, and in the low mids, I'll probably try to mess around with giving it more punch. You can also shape your snare drum by using compression as well. So for example, if I use like a CLA 76, right? This could be a really great way to give this snare drum some snap. And the way I do this, because a CLA 76 is so fast, it's a very, very fast in microseconds when you go all the way fast on attack. And by the way, these are opposite. So if you go to the higher number, this is the fastest attack. The higher number on release is the fastest release. Slowest attack and slowest release is on the 1. Okay, so everything in between is how you'd set this. On the attack here, I can go like pretty quick. I can go like in the middle, maybe 5 or so. And this will be in microseconds. Like literally, it's so fast. You wouldn't believe it. And then I'm gonna push into the input where I'm getting about 3 to 5 dB of compression. And then we'll set this up so we get a little snap out of the snare. That's really nice. And the bluey is awesome because it's got a little bit more roughness, a little bit more aggression to it. I'm gonna back off the attack just a little bit. I'm just setting the attack and the release. Okay, so let's put this into the mix with these other drums and hear it. Sounding really good to me. Now, another thing is you can try putting your EQ after your compressor to see how that affects the sound of the everything, right? So now I'm going to get the compression hitting with all the low end and everything, and then be shaping it afterwards. You can also just option drag and use just the filter on this one. For example, let's just reset that. And then on this one, we'll use the high mid frequency boost here, and maybe even just a little high end too. Like let's throw in a little bit of this and just see what happens here. That's really nice. And also, if you feel like it's compressing too hard, you can back off and do a parallel mix in this. Okay, so let's just back off so we can open it up a little bit. Like take it maybe to like 60 to 70% and see what that sounds like. All right, now let's pop the bass in because we want to get this thing rocking, obviously, and the drums and the bass are the foundation of most tracks. Whether you're making pop, soul, music, funk, hip hop, trap, whatever, it's usually drums and bass, right? I have a few basses here. I have an electric bass playing like a rhythm part, and then I have a sub synth bass. So I want to kind of stack this in. So what's the electric bass doing? Let's just hear it. Okay, I like it. It's a little bit too throaty for me, and I like it to be a little bit more fuzzy. But before I start going and like shaping this electric bass by itself, I really want to hear what the other basses are doing as well with it. So is the sub synth bass helping support that fuzz and the low stuff? Let's check it out. That's sounding really good to me. A lot of the times in mixing, you got to know what to not process, right? Like it's so easy to just want to throw plugins on everything because we get into this kind of controlling thing where we got to control the mix, man. If I put this on, I got to EQ this and put a compressor and saturate it. Like sometimes you don't need to because the synth is already sounding really good or the bass is sounding really good. Sometimes you got to know when to leave things alone. And I'm going to leave those alone for now. That doesn't mean I won't touch them. Okay. And I got this bass back layer. And if I remember in the production what I was trying to do here, I wanted this to be like really distant, but let's hear this in the mix real quick and solo it out. All right, yeah, this was supposed to be like an affected sort of thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the VEQ, and the VEQ is really cool. It's like a Neve style EQ. And what we're going to do is use the filters here and the EQ, and I'm just going to make this really kind of just mid-range focused on this bass, okay? So let's really filter out, and I'm going to solo this. And that's pretty awesome, but now let's make this a little bit more texturized. So the red stuff, this stuff, Abbey Road is just insanely good. And if we're talking about analog, like this is the kind of the godfather of it all, right? The Abbey Road stuff, we have some really cool saturation stuff, some great EQ stuff in here. But I'm going to come in here and just use this drive on the red 17 here. I'm sorry, that is like one of the best sounding saturation plugins and algorithms that I hear on any plugin. It's exactly what you want from it, and it sounds so cool. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to do some reverb, right? Because reverb is like one of my favorite reverbs of all time, and it is very low on CPU, and you can use it with tracking and all that stuff, and I just absolutely love it. Now, there's a preset from Ross Hogarth on this that I always use, and I think it sounds so freaking good right when you start with it. So go to Artists here, and we'll go to Ross Hogarth, and then, yeah, there's a bunch of really cool stuff in here. But this, I think it's the drum space or the solo guitar space. So the vocal verb here on plate 1, this is what I'm going to use to start with. I'm going to dampen the EQ a little bit, and we're going to get this really wet sounding. I like this preset because it plays a lot with the early reflections. You can hear like, it's just deep now. A being what we've done so far on this bass, and then we'll pop it into the mix. Now, what does that sound like in the mix? Sounding so good. I love that because it feels like this texture that's happening. Now, another plugin... whoa, that was kind of tight. Another plugin I like to use is the center plugin. Now, this doesn't really fall under the analog modeled plugins, but it's a bit of a cheat code for me getting some width out of everything. What I'm gonna do here is just take down the center because the bass and the kick drum and all this low end stuff is in the center, but I wanna put this kind of like deep, crazy vibe out into the sides a little bit more. So we'll do this. Like, how cool is that? Just makes everything super wide and feels really cool. So that's all good. I love how that's sounding. The electric bass here though, I feel like this needs some compressions. So on the bass, I'm gonna go with some Poigchild 660, and this is just gonna give you a really nice tube compression, and it's always good on bass. I've never found a bass that doesn't like this compressor. So we're gonna kind of take this time consistent up just a touch, and I'm gonna drive to be about 3 dB. This can be pretty heavy handed, so even 3 dB of compression is quite a bit on this plugin. That is sounding awesome, and now it's time to get our vocals into this mix. I want to go into the lead vocal. I want to really just like work on the lead vocal first, okay? Before I start, thinking I need to work on all these other vocals, I want to build my vocal chain with the lead, and then I can actually take that lead vocal chain and duplicate it and start to put it on other tracks and then just tweak it. Let's do this lead vocal, and let's hear this in the mix so far.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
So to me, the vocal sounds thin. It sounds pretty sharp in the sibilance area, and it just sounds like it doesn't really have the drive and the thickness and the kind of thing that the track really needs, right? So let's start with just some compression. And again, you can go to this Poigchild 660, great on vocals as well, and gonna give us some drive. And then I like to sometimes go, hey, let's do a really fast compressor, like a CLA 76 first. So let's try this and then follow it by the Poigchild, so I can get some color out of the Poigchild, and also just like some more soft kind of vibey compression, because this is a slower compressor, right? It's a little bit more gooey, and it also is a tube compressor, so a variable mu compressor, which compresses with tubes, and the CLA 76 is not a tube compressor. We are talking about a FET compressor here. So I'm gonna go with the Bluey here. This is a rock track, so I want that kind of, aggressive kind of vibe. And for vocals, I like to go pretty fast here. So we'll go real fast on the release, and we'll go on the attack. We're gonna go kind of in the middle here. Now let's let this compress about 5 to 7 dB. That's where I think the sweet spot is on any 1176. Let's check it out.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Instant sounds like a record. Like, that's what an 1176 does. That's what this CLA 76 does. It feels like a record now. It's like instant too. Like, you turn it on, you play with it. Oh, sounds great. So let's bypass this in and out so you can hear it.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
And it's also holding everything together, thickening the vocal a little bit, and pushing it in your face and keeping it in your face, which I really think is super necessary for something like this. Now, let's see what the Poigchild is doing here.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby.
Okay, awesome. We're gonna use the Poigchild for color. So the way that I wanna color this is driving the input gain, because you're driving into the tube circuitry, but then backing off on the threshold, so we're barely compressing. We're really getting the tone of this input gain, and then we can make up the gain on the output.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
So see, we're just kind of catching peaks, but it's giving it so much tone. Like, it feels so good. And that's such a cheat code. And I hate saying cheat code, but it really is. Like, this is that vibe, And if you want to start to shape this a little bit afterwards, I like the VEQ quite a bit for this kind of stuff, for any sort of vocal shaping, because it's, especially for rock, because it's a Neve EQ style, and it'll just give it that aggression, right? For me, I just want like a little bit more spit in that 3K area. So this 33 is probably really good. And then I want to kind of take down a little bit of the 200 area. So 220 or 270, I'm not sure yet, but we'll just kind of nudge this down just a touch and use a high Q.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
Actually, I feel like now that I hear it, I want more body in that area. So let's go to the 220, and let's just kind of take this up a touch with the high Q off.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
Now this is shaping really nicely, but there's still something going on that I'm not liking with the sibilance. So I just want to hit this with the RDSer. I'm just going to have to use this, even though we're only using analog. I really want to make sure that this is de-essed. So let's get some of these S's out of here.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
Now you're probably like, wow, that vocal sounds really stanky. It's got some, hair on it. And I'm like, yeah, dude. Hell yeah, it does. That's exactly what I want. I want it to sound like it's about to break up. And that's part of desperation in the vocal when you're mixing. That's part of the art. You need that oh my gosh, we're about to go over the edge, It's rock, man. It's like, yeah, that's what we're doing, right? Kanye does that on a bunch of rock record punk stuff that has trap elements. It's part of getting a vibe going. So don't be afraid of distortion. I never am. Last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to send this to a bus and we're going to get some vocal reverb going. And again, I just love the reverb. So I'm going to go here again and I'm going to go to a plate setting, plate 1, and let's roll down the bottom here, right? And the top, and then we will do a little bit of dampening here. I kind of like it dark, but I dampen a little bit on the low end. And then the pre-delay, I like the pre-delay around 30 or so. And this is just gonna get separation with my reverb, and I always use pre-delay. Never a reverb I don't use pre-delay on. And we'll mess around with the time once we get there. The diffusion, I like it right in the middle. So diffusion is basically the scattering of the reflections, right? It's like, do you want the scattering to be like, shah? Or do you want it to be like ka-ka, 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 like a hard reflection, right? The diffusion is that. It's the diffusion of the reverb sound. If you had a bunch of diffusers in a room, like the one I got behind me, this wooden one, it's going to diffuse the sound a lot more and scatter the sound a lot harder.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
That's sounding pretty damn cool. One thing I do want to try, though, is just putting the reverb as an insert and blending it in instead of sending it, because sometimes that can give you a different result. So let's try it out.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
I think it's pretty similar. It's like, can I tell the difference? Not too much. So I'm going to keep it just as an insert. I'm going to just mute this one. I'll call it vocal reverb because we might want to send other vocals to it. Now let's start to put in the other vocals. Now that I have this kind of preset, chain put together, I can save this and just call it vocal reverb preset or something like that. Or I can just copy it and put it onto the other tracks. Now I have a stack here, I can tell. So let's just start to move this stuff over and add this to the other vocal. All right, now I've gone ahead in the mixer and kind of copied all of that over to the other vocals. And I want to just hear these and start to balance them into the mix.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
So this is sounding really cool to me. The next thing I want to do is take all the vocals here and pop them to a vocal mix bus and then compress these together so they can start to gel. And for that, I'm going to use the CLA 3A, and it's just a great fast compressor. It doesn't have any tubes in it. This is the solid state version of the 2A, and it's just going to give you some nice glue.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone.
I also like to compress all the vocals together when they all have reverb on them as well, because the compression just kind of brings the reverb up as well, and it just feels better to me. So moving on, we're going to pop in some synths. So let's hear these synths on the chorus.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
All right, so a lot of this for me feels like it needs some spatial stuff going on, right? And maybe a little bit of EQ as well. So let's go into the Abbey Road stuff, and I want to use some chamber reverbs here. because I think chambers sound really cool on synths. And on this one especially, I'm just going to use this chamber. I might try some presets, but for the most part, I'm going to do some filtering. I'm going to go bass cut out, like the bass stuff, and then the top stuff. So like down to like maybe 10K or so. And then let's just start to play around with this dry wet and see what we can do with this reverb and the synth.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby.
See, that's really cool sounding. It feels like it's in a room, like you're playing a synth in an interesting room. So let's pop that in.
Night, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Now we have this synth lick, which I think needs some compression. It just needs to come up in volume for the most part, but I think also just giving it some compression with the 3A is going to do this. Just kind of give it some oomph here.
We're just coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Same thing on this. I want to give this Jupiter synth lick some space, some delay could be really cool. Like let's try the H delay and let's just throw it through some of this to give it some like, you know, some bouncy ping pong stuff. I think it'll just kind of open up the space for it. So for ping pong kind of delay, turn on the ping pong. You can take this to eighth notes. I usually like eighth or quarter. Generally speaking, like if you do a longer delay, you're going to get more kind of depth feeling. If you do a shorter delay, it's going to feel more like wide and spacious. But yeah, deeper is going to be like a longer sort of thing. And you also want to play around with the filters. You want to low pass and probably just a little bit of high pass, but for the most part, low pass to get your delays to feel deeper, because your delay, as it delays, you want it to go bing, bing, boom, 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 boom. Like the further away something feels, it's going to be more rolled off on the top. It's going to feel darker. So let's just roll off all the way down to like 600 or so. And yeah, I'm just going to mess around with this and let this kind of do its thing. We are at 133. So if you just hit on the host and once you play, it'll lock in.
Yeah, I'm coming undone.
I mean, that's really cool, right? Like that's just giving it so much more space. And after the delay, let's do a Abbey Roads plate, because I think that this will give it kind of like this like extra depth that's going to happen. So I'm going to bring this up as well, the damper, and this is just going to give me a longer reverb. Let's try it out. I mean, that's sounding pretty damn cool, right? And I might want to just shape shift this a little bit with some EQ right after the delay. So let's just go in and use an SSL EV2 channel. And this way we can do multiple things. We can do some filtering right at the bottom, like just kind of high pass some stuff. We can do some mic drive for this. I really love this mic preamp drive. A little bit goes a long way. I'll turn on the split here and I'll just go all the way up to like 80 hertz or so. And then on this, this is where I want to kind of just give me a little bit more juice on the top here. So let's go like this.
Yeah, I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
I mean, that's huge now, right? It's like opening up the space. All of a sudden, we're in a different world here. And I don't want that to be super exaggerated, so I'm going to just kind of tuck it back in volume and get the mix right.
Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Another thing I like to do, because I see this bus on the drum mix bus keeps going over, I like to just add like an L1, you know, just throw a limiter on here just so that it doesn't have those overs when it feeds the master bus. So we can just hit an out ceiling of like 0.5, -5, right? And also you can do a little bit of limiting to just kind of let the drums kind of stay where they're at.
Yeah, I'm coming undone.
And I might do the same thing on the vocal mix bus. So if I go to the vocal mix, I have this, I'll just do an L1 just so I can kind of limit the vocals. And I love doing this on mix buses, just giving it a little bit of limiting.
Yeah, I'm coming undone. 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Right? This is starting to sound like a record. All right. And for the sake of this not becoming like an 80-minute video, I want to give you guys a before and after real quick, just so you can really hear how far we've come with this mix. So I'm going to bypass all the plugins that we got going on. And remember, the master bus doesn't have anything going on besides catching overs. So we still got plenty of master bus stuff to do. I want you guys to let me know if you made it this far in the video in the comments. Do you want more videos like this? Do you guys want more in-depth mixing kind of videos for the Waves channel? Just let me know in the comments. Drop a comment. Because if you didn't make it this far in the video, then, you know, who really cares, right? But if you did, I can, you know, we can make some more in-depth tutorials on mixing and videos that are a little bit longer like this. All right, so let's hear an A/B before and after.
We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone. We're just 15 minutes to midnight, baby, and a bloodshot promise in your eye. I'm coming undone. Yeah, I'm coming undone.
Now that's all the time I got, unfortunately, in this video, but you guys let me know what you think about the mix. If you have any questions in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, we'll bring you a lot more game. I'll see you guys next time.